from a trip to Morals.
Hello. I might as well have been. Yeah, I did.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Radical Esports Cup, our broadcasted split here on Friday nights live on iRacing and Racebot TV. The 2100 GMT split returns as we get on with Season 3 in 2025. It's myself, Unilary, and Ron Mouse taking you through the action tonight, which comes from Watkins, Glen, one of the circuits that's going to be well used this week, that's for sure. A pretty high-speed circuit that brings you up and downhill, quite surprisingly so, actually, across that boot section. You can see there the toe on the hill where it gets a little bit more technical. The long expanses of the back straight as well, which means slipstreaming opportunities are going to be rife as well. Good evening to you, Ron. Good to be alongside you again. This is a great circuit for this kind of racing. It comes in our packed schedule of Season 3, running all the way to the start of September.
We have got a fantastic schedule to look forward to all throughout the summer here on Racebot and the iRacing Esports Network. Looking ahead to Ultra Sladen in 1 week's time. Spa's always a pretty good race. Thruxton for week 5 is really interesting to me. The Nürburgring was the opening race last season. Zolder, that's going to be some fun. Suzuka always puts on some good racing, along with Fuji staying in Japan for 2 consecutive weeks. Sebring, I absolutely adore in this car. Actually drove in one of these broadcasted races a couple of seasons ago at Sebring. Really like that combination. Interlagos and then the Hockenheim ring to bring this 12-round season to a close. But here at the Glen, we have got some fantastic racing to look forward to. These cars put on some awesome racing when it comes to this track.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Ostersleben quite a lot, by the way. That's going to be a lot of fun when we get to it. Those are not the standings. We'll get the right ones up here in a few moments' time. But I can tell you already that James Barry has stolen a bit of a march early on this season with Ava Gullikson. They are the two to watch, if you like, from this season so far in Season 3 of 2025. There's the standings. 4 points between the two of them, Barry and Gullikson. Rafa Blanco is next. He's only a few points ahead of the next few in the queue, actually. In fact, third to 10th is all very close. Cattell Larsen and Paki Caruso round out the top 5. Olive Bratton is 6th ahead of Peter Ivanyi, with Raul Pallicero, David Jordan and Salo Ratanen rounding out the top 10. I've got to say a couple of names there that people, well, certainly I don't recognise, Ron. Maybe you do recognise a few more of them, but certainly familiar names with Barry and Gullikson 1 and 2 by some distance, actually, considering we're so early on in the season.
Yeah, you've got a mix of those names that we have seen many, many times. The top 3, in fact, are your reigning champions here in the Radical Official Series, dating back to Rafa Blanco last season, Harvard Gullikson the season before that, and James Barry, who won it 3 seasons in a row before Gullikson was able to get the job done 2 seasons ago. So some familiar names inside the overall top 10, and some not so familiar names. Looking through, haven't really seen some of the other drivers that we see just barely outside the top 5. But regardless, a very stacked grid of racers that are hitting the track, and a rather packed split here for this 2100 GMT broadcasted race. Of course, covering the top split action. This is not a league event. This is the action from the iRacing Official Esports Cup, and you can catch all this action every single week here on Racebot TV. These drivers always like to show up and put on a good show, and I have a feeling that with how close this qualifying session is, we're in for a good one.
Yeah, and if your R rating's good enough, by the way, you can join in with this car. So there you go. Although the R rating does have to be quite good, because these guys are quite good, as you're about to see in this session right now. As we've seen, looking through that track map there, we are on the Watkins Glen layout that I think is going to provide such great racing in these cars. High-speed corners, ready to use the downforce in these machines, but also some slipstreaming opportunities as well, which are going to be great. Rafa Blanco goes over the line there in the number 1 car. He stays 4th. Those are the interval gaps. So Andre Castro's just under a 10th ahead of Gullikson. James Barry down in 6th place, so not quite close to his championship rival for the moment. And that's a good time so far from George Gonzaga, who's up inside the top 5 right now, actually out-qualifying his teammate as it stands.
Yeah, and George Gonzaga, he has really turned up the wick over the past couple of seasons here in these SR10s. You know, for as long as I've been doing these Radical Esports Cup Series broadcasts, which is as long as I've been doing these broadcasts all the way back to March of 2023, he's always been a fixture of this series, has always shown up to the races week in and week out. He's also a fixture of the Radical European Championship that you can catch occasionally on Sundays here on Racebot TV. Very good driver, very experienced driver as well, but in terms of the pace department, he has really turned up the wick as of recent. Currently slotted to start this race on the 3rd row, but as he heads his way around the final turn, let's see if he'll be able to improve.
Yeah, let's see here whether there's going to be a late one from Gonzaga. as he put, well, that's late jink there, suggests not, but ready to be surprised. No, not this time round. He stays where he is just for the moment. Here through the final corners, Menno de Graaf. He's going to stay where he is as well, by the looks of things there, and pull into pit lane. It looks like everybody is pretty much done with the session. The 21 drivers we have in this session. There's Jarek Dunkovic in ninth. Good qualifying from him to get inside the top 10. Raul Pellicero as well, who is in the 8th position. There's Nelson Bernardo, one of the drivers who hasn't got a time yet, so it does seem that we've got more than 21 in the field. It's going to feel quite busy out there tonight. Normally, in case you've not seen this series before, normally we're hovering around the 20s, probably just below 20. We've got upwards of 22, it looks like, here so far, maybe 24, 25. This is a pretty busy split this week.
Oh, it absolutely is. We saw a lot of drivers registering for this week. Watkins Glen, a rather popular track, and from my experience covering these cars around this track, it could put us on some absolutely brilliant racing. And it could be part of the reason why so many drivers have turned up. But Andre Castro, the top qualifier, very experienced in Esports Cup competition, was a multi-time race winner last season, has some experience running at this track as well. Let's see what he can do starting at the pole.
Absolutely. It's the place to be. And in that qualifying session, Andre Castro managed to get it. Herbert Gullikson will be alongside with Lasse Sorensen in third. Rafa Blanco is then fourth, ahead of the teammates, George Gonzaga and James Barry sharing row 3. 7th place gone to Cattell Larsen with Raul Pellicero next involved. Jarek Dunkovic and Heinz Brum round out the top 10. Matthias Aravallo and Kim Andre Björklund sharing row 6. Just over a second off pole is Alan Reed in 13th with Chris Retz alongside. Kevin Verbruggen and Lars-Erik Frydenlund are next ahead of Ole Gullikson and Menno de Graaf running out row 9. Then Massimo Pesavento is 19th ahead of AJ Jesse and Christo Chinmay, who rounds up the 21 drivers who set times, and those few at the back don't seem to have got representative times on the board, I've got to say, here in this qualifying session. They'll all get gridded up and ready for that short run towards turn 1. It's not the run towards turn 1 I'm worried about, actually, Ron. It's the one up over the top of the hill where it gets narrow, and the S's can certainly bite.
Yeah, I used to do some race control for a rather big iRacing multi-class sports car racing series, and don't remind me of some of the chicanery that went down going up the hill here at Watkins Glen. It's an alleyway of a section of racetrack. If one driver gets it wrong through there, we're probably going to see a multi-car pileup. So I dare think about that even more because it gives me some very bad flashbacks.
Absolutely. I think we've all been in a crash like that, haven't we? in the world of iRacing.
Worse for one.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's it's one of those that often happens. Hopefully, we get everybody through lap 1 here tonight because we do want to see a good race between all of these guys. And if they do get over that hill for the first time, then they certainly will be having a good race. And we will be able to enjoy it here for the next few moments here on the iRacing YouTube channel and, of course, on RaceBot TV. The 2100 GMT split of the Radical Esports Cup ready to go again. Green flag waves here at Watkins Glen, and we are racing down in towards turn number 1. Side by side for the lead immediately here as Castro has to hold them all off in towards that first corner. Nobody running particularly wide and using that tarmac on the left-hand side. Now everybody breathing over the top of the hill, side by side for the lead here, and they've all got to give each other some room over the top of this hill, and they do at the front of the field. The teammates in the background, the inert guys on the outside line working together, both drafting down the straight, and it looks like Gullikson and Sorensen are going to get this 1 and 2, and they do. Castro is down to third as Sorensen jumps himself in front of him. He's gone. Oh, he saves it. Unbelievable save from Lasse Sorensen, but he does lose second place to Castro, and he loses third to Rafa Blanco as well.
Oh, now you look at James Berry trying to get a move done down the inside of him, down the hill into the boot section. Lasse Sorensen having a Code Brown moment, heading his way out of the bus stop chicane. That could have ended in tears. It's still some close quarters racing between those drivers. As much as James Berry is holding on to the championship lead, he didn't really have a great season last time out. He was not very well in form for Season 2. Now here for Season 3, he wants to hit the ground and hit the ground running. He's trying to get a move done on Sorensen still, who's still trying to get his bearings straight after that moment about a half a lap ago.
I'd imagine he is. That was a huge, huge save coming off the bus stop chicane there. And fair play to him for actually making it, because that could have gone wrong. And he has in the background. There's going to be a pile up there. Aravallo's involved for sure. Ollie Gullickson as well. Oh, it's happened at the back end of the field. We said it might over the top of the hill, in fact. But they waited a little bit longer. The first 12 got through. The bottom 12 are all caught up. That's where it happens. Coming off of the Grand Prix section, off through turn 9. Yeah, that's where it all transpired. This is Sorensen, though. Have a look at this up over the curb. How he saves this, I'm not sure. And how Blanco avoids him as well. Equally well done.
He got screwed up as soon as he turned into that chicane. He had Andre Castro on the inside of him. Got him a little bit squirrely. Castro, he had a very surprising run heading off through there. Hit the curb on the inside. You can see the bunny hop strategy those drivers are using. That's Barry going off.
James Barry definitely went off the road there. He came into short sideways. Oh, and he's massive. How he's not been collected, I'm not sure. Again, we're getting away with murder here early on in this race, I've got to say. Although, unfortunately, a few of these guys have dropped down the field a long, long, long way because of the early incidents here. That was Barry versus Sorensen in towards the bus stop. We'll have a replay in a few moments' time. We'll also look at the incident through turn 9 in a moment as well. But you'd think all of that busyness off the start would be good news for Havoc Gullickson. Not really. He's still got Andre Castro right behind him.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why that is the case is because Andre Castro is a machine in these radical races. As we take a look at the drama that happened right at the start of the race, as they headed their way out of turn number 9, the slowest corner around this racetrack as far as I'm concerned. Unlike some of the tighter bends that preceded, you don't have any sort of banking whatsoever to help you out. It is a flat corner, flat as a pancake. I have never had a good time heading off through there, and clearly those drivers did. It was a stack up midway through the turn that loops them around, and they all stack up in that tight section of the track. Here's a moment with Barry. It's contact with himself and Gullickson into the braking zone. So deja vu, Barry, he should be counting his lucky stars. The fact he didn't get T-boned and clobbered by anybody as a result of that.
Unfortunately, I think after that, he actually towed back to pit lane. Yeah, he did. So he's down to 20th now, and unfortunately, that didn't last very long for him. Meanwhile, this lead might not last very long for Havoc Gullickson now, as Andre Castro gets in behind him, and no, he doesn't go to make the move. Gonzaga does in the background on Sorensen for 4th position, and that he's going to try and do what his teammate couldn't, and successfully does as well, actually, with Heinz Brun not too far behind in the battle for the top 5. But that was very interesting. Castro made the conscious effort there not to try and overtake Havoc Gullickson, and I wonder whether that's part of his strategy here to try and reduce this front group to 2 before he really tries to take the lead.
And you know, I was going to raise this a little bit earlier on during this broadcast in reference to that moment that we saw involving Havard Gullickson's teammate Lasse Sorensen right at the start. The reason why Sorensen had that moment is because he went side by side heading off into that section with none other than Andre Castro. So Castro knows how badly it can end if he goes side by side heading off through that section of the racetrack. It is the premier overtaking opportunity, though, around here. These SR10s are so slipstream heavy. If we were running on the NASCAR layout and we had that flat out run from the exit of the outer loop down into turn number 10 that these racers just went through, yeah, that would probably be a good overtaking opportunity. But because we're running on the layout that we are, heading into the inner loop, the bus stop chicane, whatever you want to call it, on the back end of this racetrack, that is the number 1, that is the destination overtaking opportunity for these drivers. So you really need to get that move done there. And if you want to get it done successfully with nobody getting hurt, you need to get it done with authority, a bit of luck, and a lot of conviction.
Now let's see what Castro does this time. Even through the actual bend itself, through turn 4, he's in the back of him, but they're extending their advantage, so it is working. Sorensen's having a miserable time right now. Here comes Heinz Brun latest on this lap. Outside line, he's not going to manage it because Gonzaga gave him the slipstream to help him, and he's sideways again over the curbs here. Sorensen is not having a good day. Not in the race, he's not anyway. Decent qualifying, but right now he looks totally misplaced in this field. Every driver who's behind him seems to be hounding him at the moment.
Yeah, he is in the midst of an absolute hornet's nest, which includes many drivers, including his teammate, Kettle Larson, who are riding on board within the number 6 car down into turn number 7 to tow this uphill hairpin. Super tough to try and nail down, especially in these SR10s. Keep that car on the road, you're going to be good. Run a little bit wide off into the grass, and you are going to be in for a world of trouble. All those racers do it successfully. You can just see how much steering angle Kettle Larson has to put into it down into turn number 8, the heel, just to keep that car going on the road. These cars, even just by themselves without any sort of dirty air coming off the back of their race cars, a little bit hard to try and keep down on the road. It's a car that tends a bit more towards understeer compared to some other cars in the sim. Kind of similar in a certain way to a rather bigger prototype car, the LMP3. They sort of drive similar, which is part of the reason why I have seen some of these drivers do well in both, as I think Sorensen maybe picked up a slowdown heading his way through the final sector. He pulled to the inside and pretty much just allowed George Gonzaga to blow his metaphorical doors off.
Yeah, I wonder whether that was a slowdown or whether that was just sort of tactical to move out the way a little bit there. There's Castro again building a lead on Blanco with Gullikson. Gullikson seems like a bit of an unwilling participant in that. Brun now past Sorensen. Does it work this time? He's on the outside and he is through this time. Oh, and Larson wide. So they did go side by side this time. Brun wasn't quite far enough alongside to justify going through the bus stops, going side by side last lap, but he was this time, and he just about got himself through into the top 5.
Yeah, worked out rather well through there. The thing is with these SR10s, I think you can definitely attest to this as well, considering that we've been doing these broadcasts together for these Friday 2100 GMT broadcasted races for over a season at this point. These cars can have so many sketchy moments that from us in the commentary booth, I'm not really sure the best way I can describe it, but you have those moments when you see these drivers testing the limit of their cars and testing the limits of their competitors where you're like, oh, I don't have a good feeling about it. Where it just feels like your bones are soaking in vinegar or something like that. It just, you have a really weird feeling going on throughout your body when you see these racers run on the ragged edge of control and thinking that something's going to break. And that's something that you have to get used to doing these SR10 broadcasts. It is just constant moments of pure unbridled terror, even for us in the commentary booth, let alone them behind the wheel.
I must say, soaking my bones in vinegar is not something I've done recently, but maybe I should. I'm sure some people would like to see it. Anyway, there are the leaders, Gullikson versus Castro. It's not much of a battle, is it? Lap 6. 6 laps of not battling for the two of them for the moment. There's Castro drafting Gullikson along. And now the question's going to be, at what stage do they actually start to fight? Cattell Larson, meanwhile, gets past Sorensen. That's going to be a little bit more generous from Sorensen because they are teammates. He pulls over to the inside. He lets Larson through. He'll be less amenable to Bjorklund, Dunkovic, Reed and Verbruggen, who are all queuing up as well.
You can just see an absolute hornet's nest forming in this camera shot that we've got right now from Heinz Braun, really all the way back to Menno de Graaf in the number 20 car, currently slotted in 12th. There is no gap that is bigger than 3/4 of a second between those racers. Absolute insanity that we've got going on right now. I mean, we saw in the qualifying session earlier on how close these drivers really were. In fact, from your first place starter all the way down to your 10th in qualifying earlier on, it was just about a half a second, a little bit over that, in fact. And throughout the entirety of the field, around a racetrack like this, which, bearing in mind, folks, is about 3.5 miles with 12 very challenging corners, it was less than 4 seconds from your top qualifier all the way down to your slowest qualifier. So this field is incredibly close. It really shows you the caliber of drivers that we have participating in these races. The fact that from all different backgrounds, from all different sorts of corners of the globe, these drivers can be as close as they are in a car that is definitely a test for these racers. Our colleague, Mr. J.R. Gregory, as always said, mastery of the Radical SR10 will make you better in just about anything that you can drive. These cars are tough, and if you can master them, you're going.
Yeah, does definitely have transferable skills to those sort of especially lower powered open wheel cars, those prototypes as you were talking about earlier, but also a bit of a GT car style as well. Does give you a bit of a skill in everything, as we watch some of the world's best do battle here tonight. At the head of the day, or the start of the day, James Barry was the championship leader, although we are very early on. Now, this man's going to be at the end of this race by the looks of things. Have a Gullikson leading the way with James Barry out of the race. Unfortunate for him, really, what's happened to him this afternoon. But Gullickson has driven well. The question for him is going to be, can he win this race as he approaches half distance at the end of the next lap?
And, you know, spinning off the point that I made earlier on, talking about how being well in this race car can mean that you can do well in just about anything. You look at some of the racers all throughout this field, they have varied backgrounds, but I don't think any driver has more of an interesting background. That sounds mean. But a very interesting background for sure can be found with our P2 runner of Andre Castro. I mentioned this right before the start of this race, right as we were getting to the end of qualifying. Andre Castro, a multi-time race winner from last season here in the Radical Esports Cup, as we'll take a look at a moment involving the number 17 of Massimilio Presavanto, and that's a moment down into turn number 8, gets pitched into a spin. Very tough to have a moment like that. Downhill braking zone, it can happen in these SR10s, which are rather tough on the brakes. But getting back to the point I was going to raise, talking about Andre Castro, multi-time race winner from last season, but outside of that, and outside of the sim, a rather accomplished real-life racer as well. A driver has experience racing in Euro NASCAR machinery, NASCAR Xfinity cars at this exact same racetrack, USF 2000 and USF Juniors machinery in the American Open Wheel Ladder, and he was also the Team USA Scholarship winner in 2021. A very talented racer in real life and in the sim, is currently slotted behind your reigning champion from 2 seasons ago of Havard Gullickson. Really a battle of the titans at the front of the field.
There was a change in the meantime between Verbruggen and Alan Reed in the back end of the top 10. You see it on the bottom of your screen. Now it's Kevin Verbruggen up into the top 10. Very close again in that group behind Gonzaga for 4th. Sorensen does seem to have picked his pace up a little bit, and we run on board with him. This is not now the look of a driver who was struggling to hold on to these places, because he's very easily, well, I don't say very easily, but he is relatively easily actually staying with them now that they're in front.
I think part of the reason why Lasse Sorensen has, I wouldn't necessarily say come alive at this point in this race, he's got his head firmly above water. He's starting to tread on that water a lot easier compared to earlier on where it kind of looked like he was drowning. I think part of the reason why that is the case is because the tires are no longer incredibly angry with the driver of the number 7 car. These SR10s, if you get a little bit of slide going on with them, whether it be at the front or whether it be at the rear, once you start to overcook those tires a little bit, that's when you start to get a bit loose and a bit squirrely. Lasse Sorensen definitely had that with the moment coming through the bus stop at the very beginning of this race. Even though the track temperatures are rather cool at 74 degrees, that can still happen. It certainly happened to Sorensen in the earlier stages, but looks like he has finally, after about 9 laps, gotten his bearings fully straight.
What's going to happen in front of him here? Oh my word, Braun and Larson. That was very close into the bus stop chicane, and they get away with it. They all just back out, and tempers do not fray just for the moment. That was all very very lively though on the way towards the bus stop. Here in the meantime comes Larson, Sorensen rather, looking to the inside of Braun, but not able to make the move through there. Downhill left-hander at turn 6, which heads them on to the Grand Prix part of this great layout, which we'll be using tomorrow, by the way, if you want to do a bit of endurance racing in iRacing. The 6 hours of the Glen is tomorrow. There's plenty of splits available as well if you want to have a go around this circuit in a GTP, an LMP2 or a GT3, which is actually a little bit slower than these cars. The GT3s, the SR10 I think is a bit quicker. And so yeah, anyway, you can take on this circuit for 6 hours if you would like to in iRacing. Of course, one of those special events open to absolutely everybody as the leaders come across the line again here. 7 laps still to go, and the leaders have been absolutely steady in their positions. No changes so far between Gullickson and Castro.
As we continue to follow these racers, trying to tackle the final stages of this race, you really start to see who's been able to manage their stuff best and who has the most amount of confidence to get moves done. I think being a veteran driver is certainly going to help out some of these racers. So you look at someone like George Gonzaga, you look at someone like Heinz Braun, who, as we can certainly attest to, Ewan, he is no stranger to really starting to risk it. But here comes some side-by-side racing with Larson and Gonzaga down into the chicane.
That was close, and Larson just about stays in front here. Gonzaga has another look down the inside, but can't do it here. Heinz Braun is there or thereabouts, as we know, and Lasse Sorensen as well. A half defence again from Larson here for that position, and a half look from Braun as well. We're getting towards that latter stage of the race now where people are just getting a little bit more restless here, and Sorensen wants a piece of it as well. Coming down in towards the toe of the boot, in towards turn 7. Now is he going to be able to get the run off the corner down into turn 8, because that's where one of the biggest braking zones on this circuit is located for you to maybe have a dive down the inside. Again, not this time for Sorensen, he stays where he is.
Honestly, looking at a section like that, I think it just got proved with him running a little bit wide, did Kettle Larson. That section right towards the back end of this track, turn number 8 of the heel, the main sort of overtaking that he can do there is by a driver running a little bit wide, missing that apex a bit, and going off into the runoff area. As I said a little bit earlier on, after we saw that moment for a racer earlier on in this race, very easy to lock up a wheel in these SR10s, even in a flat braking zone. So when you've got downhill and slightly a little bit of change going on in terms of both the elevation and the track on the inside kind of falling away from you a little bit as a turn starts to bank off a bit, that's when you get a bit hair-raisy in these SR10s. Weight transfer is not a Radical SR10's friend, especially on the brakes. So look at turn number 8 maybe being a challenging spot for these drivers.
Oh. Look at Braun here. He's going to be getting past both of them here. Gonzaga stuck behind Larson, and Heinz Braun goes round both of them. Oh my word, round the outside into the bus stop chicane is not something you see too often. But Braun gets past Larson and Gonzaga in one go on the outside line. Not entirely sure what Larson was trying to do there, in all honesty. Now he's going to go down the inside in towards the Grand Prix layout. They are really racing now. We can tell that it's towards the end of this race because they're properly going for it, and it's not going to be done to the very end of the race, you wouldn't imagine. That was very impressive from Heinz Braun.
That right there is exactly the sort of move that I expect out of Heinz Braun. He is a racer who is very talented in these cars, but he knows that as good of a driver that he can be, you need to sometimes throw caution to the wind. Heinz Braun is a driver that we know can be rather aggressive in these SR10 races. Sometimes it works out well, sometimes it works out bad. That, however, was executed just about as well as it possibly could have. A stunning move from him. Just saw some overtaking a little bit farther in the back involving Jared Dunkovich, one of the drivers in the Radical Americas series, and you can actually catch this upcoming Sunday here on RaceSpot TV, and Kim Andre and Bjorklund. But here comes the weaving action down that start-finish straightaway. You can tell these drivers really value that slipstream.
That is ridiculous. Weaving around all over the place, these guys just trying, not in a ridiculous in a bad way, but just ridiculous racing at the moment. It's fantastic to watch. Larson is not going to be in too much glory here, I don't think, because Gonzaga's right behind him again. Now, what are they going to do? Gonzaga almost pulls out too soon here. He almost doesn't have a choice, though. Now where he's going to go? Oh, free wide nearly. He's going to have to back out of it here. Braun defends from Larson, who this time is going around the outside. Side by side, are they going to make it through here? It looks like they will. The bus stop chicane providing the action again, and Heinz Braun holds on again. Gonzaga tries to get his nose involved here. Sorensen's going to run now. Where's he going to go? It's going to have to be outside. Watch for him on the right-hand side here. He's not going to go all the way around just for the moment. And again, they somehow stay in the same positions what they started the lap with.
This is getting super tense and super hair-raising lap after lap, and really corner after corner at this point. These drivers are seeing the end of the race approach in front of them, and they want to get these moves done well before that white flag is in the air. You know how I said earlier on, talking about that whole, like, seeing these drivers have those hair-raising moments is like our bones are sitting in vinegar? I can't even say that that's accurate at this point. I feel like I'm actively being electrocuted looking at these racers go side by side through the entirety of the bus stop.
I didn't think we were going to see that tonight, I must admit, but there we go. You get it all from these guys here on the 2100 GMT split of the Radical Esports Cup, even at the Watkins Glen bus stop chicane, where, to be honest, I didn't think they were going to be going side by side, but these guys are proving us wrong right now. And what else are they going to prove to us in the next 4 laps? Final quarter of this race. Heinz Braun's got a huge defence on his hands, and if he stays in front while not losing a place throughout these final 4 laps, then I'll be very, very impressed. I don't think it's going to be possible, though, as they come up through the hill here. They're almost side by side before they get over the top of the hill, as Castro takes the lead from Gullickson. Where are these going to go? Oh, look at this. Gonzaga on the inside line. 3 wide, tight line in towards the bus stop to Kane, and he's got it. He jumps over the first part and he's got 4th place.
Holy cow, I genuinely thought that was going to end in a collision heading down into the bus stop. It didn't, though. I think that really speaks volumes about the racers that we've got involved in this. All 4 of the drivers that we've got on this camera shot right now are veterans of these SR10s. They know exactly where they can put their cars, what sort of grip they will have every single time they turn that steering wheel. As that's been going on, Andre Castro actually jumped into the race lead in front of Havard Gullickson. That's a commanding move down into the bus stop. See a little bit of damage though on the side of that race car, I'm pretty sure. Let's yeah, you can see, looking at that a little bit just above that number 2 on the left hand side of that race car, some damage on the SR10 of Andre Castro. I wonder if that will potentially have an effect on him when it comes to trying to fend off any sort of challenge that your now P2 runner of Havard Gullickson may have.
Was he the one who scraped alongside Sorensen, or am I imagining that?
I believe so, yes, on lap 1.
Yes. Maybe that explains Sorensen's speed as well, because compared to his qualifying speed, his race pace has not been good at all. Maybe they've both got a bit of damage at the moment. Castro may be only visual, but Sorensen seems to have been struggling in real life on the circuit in terms of speed, and maybe the two making contact is an explanation for that. We might well try and find out afterwards, if at all possible. But well, there's some damage. We're talking about minor bits of damage for Castro and Sorensen. There's nothing minor about this damage back here.
I know, following that Skittles car of Ledecky, I can't really taste the rainbow. More, I can see the rainbow being scattered all across the racetrack. That, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but that is not the way a Radical SR10 is supposed to look.
No, definitely not. It's quite a good livery. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see very much of it here tonight in the opening lap. In case you weren't with us, by the way, that was lap 1 of the race. That was a big pile-up on the opening lap. This is the battle for 4th, and this is what's been entertaining us for the 13 laps since then, really. George Gonzaga is 4th, and actually the last lap was the most mundane we've had for lap upon lap in this group. Heinz Braun next involved, then Larson and Sorensen. This is further back in the pack, as Nelson Bernardo got up into 16th place, or got down to 16th place rather, got served in towards turn 1.
Wow, I mean, he kept it out of the barriers there. I'm not even sure if he knows how he was able to do that, but I mean, granted, his front tires have been now turned into rectangles as a result of that lockup down to the turn. But hey, he kept it out of the wall, and that's what matters at the end of the day. Coming right towards the end of this race now, 2 laps left to go for all of these racers, and you can see that slipstream game being played once again. That was a pretty big cut into the inside wall for George Gonzaga, trying to hold off any sort of challenge that the drivers behind try and throw out.
Sorensen's got no momentum here. He very nearly hit his teammate in towards turn number 1. He's not quite had a good race here. It's Kim-Andre Björklund, is it, who's gone for an incident. He's now been overtaken by Verbruggen and Reed. And yeah, there he is, outside the top 10. Kim-Andre Björklund. Why is he slowing down so much? Not entirely sure. There goes Alan Reed, past Kevin Verbruggen. That's going to be an amicable change of places between those two. And it was in the battle for 4th as well, by the way. No positional changes, but it was all very calm, waiting for the last lap of this race, it seems.
Yeah, they're waiting for this race to fall into their laps, but there's not a lot of opportunities left for them when they get that white flag, really. It's the run down into the bus stop, and then if you don't get a move done there, you're gonna kind of have to hope and pray that your drivers that you're racing alongside with have some sort of off-track excursion. Hopefully not while you're side-by-side with them, because they'll probably take you with them in terms of going off the track, but, you know, you gotta crack a couple eggs and make an omelet. These drivers, though, at the front of this pack, George Gonzaga, you got Heinz Braun, Kevin Larson, and Leslie Sorensen losing a bit of time, so I can really say this turned into a 3-car battle, and it's dipped away from being a 4-car battle. It's going to be an intense run all the way through to the fall of the checkered. And Sparrow mentioned for the drivers at the front of the field, less than 0.2 of a second it was between Castro and Gullickson down to the braking zone of turn number 1 for the final time in this race. They come out of the turn, you can see that gap is already down to nearly a 1/10.
I think Castro's trying to make this gap so small that Gullickson almost has no slingshot here and nowhere to go. And that could be his downfall. Is Gullickson going to get through here? Has he timed this just right? He led the race early as Castro was trying to get them away from the rest of the field, and he goes straight through. Gullickson goes into the lead there into the bus stop chicane. What's going to happen for 4th place here as those two battle for the win out front? Gonzaga versus Braun for the 4th position. They're not going to back out. And Braun does it again. Round the outside. Oh, there's contact again. Gonzaga tries to come back at him. It's another spectacular move from Heinz Braun.
Holy cow, that was incredible stuff from the driver. The number 5, it's still not over. George Gonzaga looking for a move down the inside, down the hill, off into turn number 6. That could have ended in tears. It thankfully didn't, though.
And Gullickson didn't have a very good run off there either, but Castro not quite close enough to try and capitalise here. He might have just lost the place at the worst moment here, Andre Castro, as he tries to take the win here at Watkins Glen. Not sure it's going to happen for him. What about Gonzaga? Does he dive, make a late move maybe to take that 4th place away? Castro's got a good run again here. Is it going to be a final corner bit of heroics? Maybe from the driver of the number 2 car into the final turn. Is he going to dive? No, he won't go for it on the inside line. He's going to try and get the run off the corner, and he smashes into the wall trying to get that run. Albert Gullickson wins the race. He takes the championship lead as well in a thrilling finish at Watkins Glen. He took it on the last lap. He wins by half a second, and behind, Hans Braun gets 4th in the battle of the race. Fair play to everybody involved in that. What a great race that was.
That was absolutely fantastic, and I think there's only one driver who probably leaves that race being a little bit bored, and it's Rafa Blanco, your reigning champion, ends this race in P3. He was practically in no man's land at the end of that. I think he may have had a good view of Gullickson and Castro's fight down into the bus stop, but outside that, he was in nobody's way. He was just in an uncontested P3 pretty much from the drop of the green all the way through to the fall of the checkered, but holy cow, that battling right towards the end of this race was absolutely fantastic. Well done to all those racers for giving us some action to talk about, putting on that brilliant racing action, the moves they did, and more importantly, keeping it clean in the process.
That was spectacular stuff as Howard Gullickson takes the victory here at Watkins Glen by half a second over Andre Castro. As you say, Rafa Blanco, the only lonely man in that race, really, certainly in the top 10. He gets a podium, though, ahead of Heinz Braun, who made that spectacular late move to 4th. George Gonzaga was next ahead of Kjetil Larsen and Lasse Sorensen, who must have had damage or something, I don't know. 7th place, though, for him. Jarek Kudunkovic finished next ahead of Alan Reed, and Kim-Andre Bjorklund did get his top 10 after all. It's Kevin Verbruggen who doesn't get his top 10. Menno de Graaf ends up 12th ahead of Lars Erik Frydenlund. Christo Chinmay and AJ Jesse round out the top 15, with Nelson Bernardo, the last driver, on the lead lap. Chris Retz was 2 laps down, Ollie Gullickson 4 down, Massimo Pesavento at 6 down, and Marco Cesena at 13 down. Raul Policero, James Barry, Matthias Arevalo and Nicholas Ludecki all retired very early on, most of whom in that lap 1 turn 9 incident, I would guess. Big pile up through there, in case you didn't see it earlier on. Well, what a race that was. I said it was going to be a good one, Ron, but pleased that I'm right on this occasion for once. It was great for 4th place. Good tactics, actually, for the lead as well. Enjoyed that between Gullickson and Castro, but the 4th place got to be the highlight of that race.
Yeah, that move from Heinz Braun right at the very end was that was poetry in motion. That was absolutely fantastic stuff for him as he swept around the outside, heading off into the bus stop, which, as we saw, put on full display throughout that race. That is not an easy section in these SR10s. If you go off heading through there, there's one way that's going to end, and it is desperately, desperately wrong. Hitting those curbs and smashing your shock absorbers. He was able to get moves done like that all throughout this race. So if we had a bravery award, we would have to give it to Heinz Braun for the absolutely stunning overtakes he put on all throughout this race. Bravo to all those racers, though. Fantastic stuff here at the Glen for race 2.
Absolutely. Let's chat to some of them, shall we? Havoc Gullickson, who has won that race, can now join us. Havoc, congratulations on the race victory. That was a very tactical race for the win, I would say. What were your tactics going on to those final few laps?
Hard to say. Just try to not be the first out of turn 1 on the last lap. And Castro tried to let me go, but I was maybe a bit coward. But yeah, tactics is the most important on this track because you cannot get rid of the guy behind in this draft. So yeah, we just drove and we had a good race together. He bumped me on the first couple of laps and we got rid of the rest, and thereon it was just to think about the last lap.
Was it really as simple as being just second position, though? Was there any way in which the leader coming off of turn 1 on the final lap could have won that race, or is it really as simple as being second going on to the last lap?
If the other guy don't make a mistake, I think you have no chance to pass again. So I think after the bus stop, the race was over for him, I think.
Well, congratulations, nevertheless, on getting that race victory here tonight. Thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us, Havard. I'm sure we'll see you again next week.
I hope so. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Havard Gullikson there, the race winner here tonight from Watkins Glen, ahead of Andre Castro, who can now join us as well. Andre, welcome in. Good to have you with us, and congratulations on finishing on the podium. Just tell us about those final few laps and what you were thinking going on to the last lap as you were still leading the race.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think I just was way too close to Hubbard the whole time and kind of cooked my front tires, and after that it was really hard to stay close to him, so I figured I had to be in front if I had a chance to win and like maybe try to pull a gap. But yeah, I feel like in clean air the whole race he just had fresher tires, his tires were in better shape and he was able to stay close to me. So on the last lap we were just kind of playing games there out of turn 1, I was trying to get him close to me so that he couldn't get a run, but the draft is so strong that it doesn't really matter what you do. So yeah, it's a good race, good race for Hubbard, and a good win for him, and he had really good pace. I was trying to push him away from the rest of the field, so I succeeded in doing that, but in doing so I I think my front tires fell off, but it was a fun race nonetheless, so it's good to have a top 2.
I know that these races are always easier in hindsight, so is everything, but in hindsight, would you have gone and taken the lead, taken the clean air, instead of pushing yourself and Hubbard away from the rest of the field to reduce the front group to 2, or would you do the same again?
I don't know, I think I'd probably take the lead earlier than I did. Maybe I could have pushed for like 3 or 4 laps and then taken the lead. I'd never had that happen before, really. I think I don't remember another time where like I burn the tires off like that. So I guess Watkins Glen just has a lot of like fast sweeping corners. So in the dirty air that was tough. But I probably would take the lead around lap 4, lap 5 if I had to do it again. Just to get us away from the rest of the pack, and then maybe save the tires a bit.
As I say, all these things are much easier in hindsight, as always, but congratulations on finishing second nevertheless, and thanks for coming to chat to us afterwards as well.
Yeah, thank you guys for putting on another great broadcast. On here for another season, so excited to keep racing.
Absolutely excited to be here. Joe Castro, congratulations, second place here tonight, here from Watkins Glen, just in behind Havard Gullikson. George Gonzaga, also one of the main features of our broadcast tonight, can also join us as well. George, welcome in. Wanted to chat to you a little bit about that battle for 4th place, because that was spectacular. If we get a better battle than that this season, we're in for an absolute treat. What was it like to be a part of?
Yeah, it was really nice, really clean and hard battle. It was the paradox between attacking and losing the gap to Rafa, or I don't know. Strategically, I was trying to make the math on my head, and I couldn't think at all because I could see his Heinz or Tiettel or Lassie on my rearview mirror. But yeah, it's a game of draft. Is waiting until the last moment, is being strategic, and I think at some point Heinz started doing just that. But then when it comes to the final laps, it's just being confident, and I went for it on the lap 14 or 15. And I love that bus stop. I really like being on that inside. But yeah, it's a really exciting track, and it was really sweaty. I'm like super hot in here, and I'm completely wet right now.
Yeah, it's a hot day, that's for sure. What was it like though? And tell us a little bit about how you can go side by side so easily like that, the pair of you through the bus stop chicane. You mentioned that it's one of your favourite corners, but so many times we see on these broadcasts, we watch races and you see 2 drivers trying to go side by side through the bus stop, and it just doesn't work. They just crash into each other. What's the key to making it work there?
Trust on the guy on your side, and that there will be space between the 2 drivers, because it's not just a single person responsibility. Both of them need to be coordinated. There needs to be a bit of space gathered. But yeah, a bit of a trade trick is there's like a slightly point in between the rail and the curb where you can get the right tire. and you go in the perfect line to go onto the exit as well. So, you know, I know that's the secret, so I constantly went for it. And I knew I could always get a good exit and at the same time break like maybe 10 meters where people usually chicken out. So yeah, but ultimately, to answer your question, is you need to trust the guys on your side. And, you know, I raced many years with Kjetil, and Heinz is doing a lot of progress recently. You know, we know Heinz used to be the reputation of very aggressive, but he's doing an amazing job. So kudos to them.
Well, thanks for coming to chat to us, George, and thanks for being a part of such a great battle here on our screens tonight. We look forward to chatting to you again soon.
Cool. See you guys. Thank you.
Thanks so much. That's George Gonzaga, finished 5th here tonight. Part of one of the great battles, though, that we're going to see in this season. Likely still 10 rounds to go here this season. And next week we will be at Ottersleben in a very different way. I've got to say, I'm very much looking forward to that. We'll be same time, same place, here again in 7 days' time, 4th of July. 2100 GMT is where you need to be every Friday for Radical Esports Cup action. And if you've enjoyed tonight, then I very much recommend you join us again next week for more of the same. I've been Neil O'Leary alongside Ron Mounds, with Mario Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras here tonight of this Racebot TV and iRacing broadcast here tonight. It's been a pleasure to have your company. This has been the Watkins Glen round of the Radical Esports Cup. Until we see you in 7 days' time at Ottersleben, it's goodbye for now.